Hello and welcome to another Reaconteur video, and in today's video I will be compiling the most broken things in Type Soul history. Make sure to subscribe, since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And just so you know, I'm on vacation, so every video from like now until the end of July is pretty much all recorded in a single day, which I just think is really funny. So there won't be any streams, and also things might be a little bit outdated. Don't get upset about it. Also, I'll be releasing 2 song covers for YouTube members this month. So if you want to hear my song covers, you want to hear me sing, then buy a YouTube membership. It's like $5 a month. Anyway, let's get into it. First of all, I want to talk about Hakuda. Not anytime recently though. I know a lot of you watching this probably think Hakuda a few months ago was the strongest thing in the game, but honestly, it wasn't amazing back then. It was good in 1v1s and that was really about it. And if you think Hakuda was overpowered a few months ago, then it's probably just because you weren't good at parrying. However, Hakuda about a year ago in old Type Soul was way stronger. Things like negation used to do triple the damage. It does now, and then most people weren't accurately able to counter things like Shori or the other skill box moves, since skill boxes were super rare back then. So although Shori and like Gehenna technically weren't better back then, they were more effective because people had less of an opportunity to learn how to counter them. Hakuda combos as a whole just did more damage back then, and in comparison to today, every Hakuda move did more damage, more posture damage, was harder to read because the animations were even closer to each other than they are today, and many of the moves were just even harder to parry. Overall, Hakuda was much worse a year ago, but more than Hakuda was speed as a whole. If you people think speed, which is actually currently meta right now, is bad, then you should have seen it a year ago as well. Back then, Reiatsu was a lot more plentiful, so running out was pretty much never a concern unless you somehow went an entire 5v5 gank using moves without killing or hitting a single person, which just isn't possible at all. Speed back then is a similar comparison to Hakuda back then, but even better. Reiatsu obviously wasn't a concern, which was its own balancing issue as a whole, because it was basically a useless bar you never had to pay attention to back then. But on top of that, speed was just crazy. Waterfall Dance used to have frame 1 hyper armor and be completely uninterruptible even if you parried the first 2 hits, so you're guaranteed to get hit by it anyway. It also was faster and moved more, so it was just like a free chase move as well for some reason. Spectre Step did more posture damage than basic M1, so it would often guard break if blocked, and every move was either a good evasive or did a ton of damage, making it the strongest tree in the game for literally everything completely uncontested. Basically everything speed dominated in, and it wasn't even close. And for those of you who don't know about early release Benihime, it was insane. Right now it's definitely overhated and underrated because honestly it's not that bad. It just consumes a lot of Reiatsu. But I mean, you're a Soul Reaper, so you should have enough of that. But on release, the Z move was a free guard break, and since you can time the swings, it was super easy to mix up for block pressuring, which means you just guard break no matter what whenever you used it most of the time. The X move was just a better Cero Corazon, since it pulled people in, gave you iframes, and would just true combo into basically anything, especially Sonata Flow. And the passive iframes would proc basically whenever you would hit anyone, so you'd basically just dodge out of a combo every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds you would just eat a hit for, you know, using your already super strong, nearly guaranteed hit moves. And the evasive is actually still one of the best evasive moves in the game. It's not broken, and I don't think it ever was, but it's just a really good evasive. Another broken mode equivalent would have been old, and I mean really old, like Type Soul's first initial release, Blood Bankai. It had 2 things that made it crazy broken back then in comparison to now. First of all, the lifesteal was on it on every hit, and it was just your damage and health regain. So if you did a bar of damage to someone, which is easy in Bankai form, then you would heal about a bar of health, which is insane. So the self-damage really just didn't matter. But the main thing was the true no-stun that Blood Bankai provided. You couldn't be stunned, grabbed, or interrupted in any way with Blood Bankai, and the lifesteal makes it even easier because you don't need to worry about dying in hyper armor, because you don't have any reason to play defensively with infinite lifesteal and even more infinite no-stun. Like, a lot of people like think, oh, no-stun, and they think things with like hyper armor. No, you just couldn't be stunned. You could M1 through other people's M1s, especially with Dagger, and you could just like, it was brain dead. You could auto-click no-stun M1s with Blood Dagger, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. It was absolutely insane. And for those of you who don't know about Sankt Zwinger and Death Dealing, which they used to combo like crazy a few months ago, Giftbad's slow AoE and Sankt Zwinger's true damage AoE just meant that you could use both of these for a free 25% damage on anyone in exchange for a whole 5% of your health and the little Reiatsu Giftbad cost to use. Absolutely insane. This was brain dead. Also, another really strong Shrift Thunderbolt used to have a chain lightning effect, so it was really strong for boss raiding. Because back then you could hit like 9 people at once with it using every move, so you'd just be doing large amounts of damage to people. You could hit like 9 people at once with it using every move, and then it was brain dead. Like you could just hit like 9 people at a time, and it was really good for boss raiding with speed, which, you know, it's always been good for boss raiding, even when it was at its weakest. It was really strong back then as well because the stuns on Thunderbolt were super long, making both the moves true combo into each other for free, and just about anything else that didn't have startup or end lag, you know, because everything was free back then. And also compulsory a few months ago was really good because both the moves actually true comboed into each other in any order. And this was funny because for so long people thought, oh, compulsory is a D tier shrift, and then people realized that TG had a 15% damage true combo that would string into anything else if it was just, you know, used, and it was just really dumb. So compulsory was like, people thought it was D tier when it was actually S tier, but then it got nerfed and then it was actually D tier. Also, if you guys don't know about pre-nerf light res in Segunda, which wasn't too long ago, so I'd assume most of you know what I'm talking about, but they were just insane. All the moves had more stun, more damage, larger AoEs, basically every move true comboed, and even in like just the partial set, the C move, which is the light kick, which the big pillar thing, yeah, it true comboed into or out of anything with Hakuda back when Hakuda was still good, but as of now, Hakuda's not great, and light is still good, but a light really doesn't synergize as well with things as it used to because, you know, you're not really guaranteed anything with it. Which brings us into Keto. Every form of Keto was at one point the least skilled, dumbest thing in the entire game, which is funny because I have never really thought of Keto as being the best tree in the entire game at any point in time. I just think it's just, you know, the least skilled tree in the entire game. You guys remember Hollow Bite, Stratastrike, Hollow Bite, Buster Wolf, Hollow Bite, and basically anything with any sort of stun or projectile if you time it right, which you could still do with a lot of moves. Hollow Bite is still a really good move. And then there was like all of Quincy Keto. Like Reagan used to do like 3 bars of damage up close and was a guaranteed guard break, and then you could follow up with Holy Thunder right after for like another bar of damage or a guard break if they somehow got lucky enough to not get broken by like Reagan itself. And then Sankt Bogan just had every stat increased in comparison to now. More damage, longer ragdoll, lower cooldown, less Reiatsu. You could Sankt Bogan into like Reagan into Holy Thunder every time before there were universal cooldowns on all that for way more damage than what was justified. And then like you could actually just true one combo people with Wincy Keto if they were a Soul Reaper because, you know, they didn't have as much health. And I mean, even if you're fighting in a Rankar, if you were doing this, you could still do like 3 or 4 bars of damage for free. Absolutely stupid. And then there's Keto Soul Reaper, which just had so much dumb shit. Tepusatsu on release had like 5 seconds of true stun and did like a bar of damage to defense variant Rankars, which was before the defense variant nerf, which is really important to say. And then it would also do like a bar with old defense variant with the best gear in the game, and this was before all the best gear got nerfed. This was when like the Yuhabaha cloak give you like 25 or 50 health. This was insane, and it was still doing a bar of damage. So the strongest kits of all time were eating bars of damage from that one move, and Soul Reapers were eating almost 2 bars. So the strongest kits of all time were eating bars of damage from that one move, and Soul Reapers were eating like 2 bars of damage when hit by it. And then it was unblockable, and for some reason didn't put any other Keto moves on cooldown. So you could string it into anything because of the 5-second true stun. And if you think that true stun was insane, you should have seen the old Suzumabachi Bankai. Yeah, Suzumabachi's main move used to do 450 or something damage, so it would just one-shot people, but it consumes a lot of your mode meter too, so it wasn't that amazing because it's like, oh, a free kill. But that wasn't even the best part of Suzumabachi, because every other move that you had did 3 to 5 seconds of true stun and had super short cooldowns. So you could just spam ZX and C on a person and keep a single person in an infinite stun true combo, because each move was 5 seconds of true stun with 7-second cooldown, and you had 3 of those. And this was especially annoying because it didn't do as much damage as other Bankais. So while something like old Lightning Bankai, which did a ton of damage back then and auto track would kill you in maybe 10-15 seconds, you would be sitting at your desk getting infinite stun comboed for 40 seconds straight waiting for the Suzumabachi user to just kill you already, because there was nothing else you could do about it. Like if you were fighting an old Suzumabachi user, you might as well just combat log, because if you get hit by a single Bankai move, you lost the fight. And basically every Bankai or mode has been super broken or super strong at one point. Stark Zero Metroyetta used to do 4 bars of damage, and now the 2 that you get in Segunda does less damage than the 1 you had in old type Soul. It's still really fun to use in land, but I just wish it were more strong. It's just a bit disappointing and underwhelming when, oh yeah, you just ate 1,000 Ceros for like 15%, 20% of your health. Like that's just kind of small. And also Flower and Light both shared the same M1 claw effect, which is basically just an infinite M1 stun. So if you couldn't outrange them, you couldn't 1v1 them. Which, off topic, but this is why I love Stark, because the gun M1s are insanely powerful, doing like a a third posture damage per bar and hit, and then having like the longest range in the game. They're just super fun to use. But let's talk about old water, which was broken in both Shikai and Bankai. First of all, water Shikai had like confirms into every move by just properly timing the other moves. So you could use all 3 water moves to confirm other water and non-water moves if you just timed them properly. And then for some reason, water Shikai has the ability to steal Reiatsu on hits. For some reason, water can steal life force and magic energy used by beings. Tell me how that makes sense. Who thought putting Reiatsu steal on water made sense? And this was in the time a few weeks ago or months ago when Reiatsu was at its sparsest, because like all the Reiatsu gear and clans were severely nerfed, meaning Soul Reapers at the time already had vastly more Reiatsu than any of the other 2 factions, especially because that was after Let's just got nerfed, and then like the only buff that Irankar's had, which is health, also got nerfed. So all they did was add extra Reiatsu steal to the strongest Shikai, to the faction with the most Reiatsu when the other 2 factions were struggling with Reiatsu. Insane balancing. And then the Bankai just did all of this tenfold, dealing more damage, stun, and stealing more Reiatsu, making it impossible to fight against unless you have Kyoka Sugetsu. But Kyoka didn't exist back then, so it just wasn't possible to fight at all. Which brings us into the strongest 1v1 Bankai in the entire game, Kyoka Sugetsu. The Reality Shatter move just straight up wins any 1v1 because switching your health with the opponents is just about the most brain-dead 1v1 thing ever. But then in a 1v1 against 2 Kyoka users, it just turns out to be a normal fight because whoever uses Reality Shatter first just loses, which is such a strange interaction. And also the clone flying just shouldn't be happening. Like, can we fix that? Why is the clone still flying? And other than that, a lot of you definitely don't know about what old True Bankai was. We've seen sneaks of the current True Bankais, and in the tester server they post a lot more stuff that I can't talk about. But through usage of your mode and Visored, you could master both Visored and Bankai by using them, you know, just like for periods of time. But once you mastered both, using them both together would activate True Bankai, which back then wasn't its like own mode. It would just give you a 50% damage buff as long as you were in both Visored and Bankai, which was stupid, because this was also back when every Bankai did way more damage in comparison to now, and then Blood Dagger meta existed, and this really wasn't that bad back then, because, you know, barely anyone had Bankai since it used to have the 175 raid win requirement, and honestly I kind of wish they would bring it back just so you all have to experience what it was like back in my day. No, you can't call me Unk because I said that. Regardless, this would have been a much bigger issue if both Bankai and Visored weren't extremely difficult to get. More people at this time probably had Bankai than Visored, and probably less than 5% of the players on Type Soul had modes unlocked. And I've actually only ever seen true Bankai Visored combo like on old titled players like the court guard captains and stuff. And that's really just because they were CC players who got everything handed to them. So they were really the only people who were going to be having that old true Bankai, which didn't even matter because most of them had spec moves anyway, like Getsuga Jujisho, which would do like 4 bars of damage for no reason. Which brings us into titles and ranks. Back in old Type Soul, you used to be able to obtain titles like Espada, Sternritter, and Captain if you were a CC player. These titles would give insane stat buffs, like I believe the Espada had like 200% health in Reiatsu, and they would usually come with their own spec level gear, like how Sternritters could steal Bankai, Espadas had buff full res movesets, and like, not Grand Ray Sero, but like, what's the buff version of it called? If you know, leave it in the comments down below. The other one the Espadas use, and then like Cero Metralleta, and then Cero Escudas was also just super buffed, and everything was just buffed to be bigger and do more damage. And basically the same for all the captains for the Soul Reapers. The only cool thing about these titles is that they could kind of be stolen, but not really because nobody ever passed it. Like, you could challenge a lore titled person to a 1v1, and if you somehow won against their double damage, health, Reiatsu, and AoEs, you could hypothetically steal their title. But then you had to have a dev or something change the titles around, and most of them didn't want to deal with that, so even if you somehow beat a titled player, which you weren't going to, but if you could, it rarely resulted in stealing their title. And also, all the titled players had super dumb names, and they dressed like strippers most of the time. I'm being so serious, I've seen so many of them. And if you think Mitsuri was the person who like pioneered this, because people keep seeing like the stripper boots in game, and they're like, oh, that's the Mitsuri effect. No, that's the Espada effect. Espadas have been doing that since the game came out and was in testing. Mitsuri stole it from them. Anyway, enough about Mitsuri and how people who wear that stuff need to be banned because it is a kid's game. Does anyone remember all the one-frame counters? Pressure shift, ice counter, theater counter. Most Soul Reapers would have like 2-frame 1 counter moves because theater kendo or ice kendo was meta, and this meant you had theater counter and pressure shift, so it was impossible to get caught in a combo because you have 2 free escapes that also damage. Even now, counters still work really dumb because for some reason an ice counter or a theater counter can counter my Buster Wolf from across the arena. I just don't like that. Regardless, it doesn't really matter because I just use Waterfall Dance to catch them, so it punishes them more than me, but it really just shouldn't work like that. And also, True Blue, currently the best essence in the game. Insane, right? it just makes Quincy's do more damage and have more health at all times for no downsides, making them just a better version of the old Arrancar defense variant. Right after Quincy's and Arrancars both got nerfed, so now Arrancars might actually be the weakest race in game, excluding modes, of course, because Segundas are amazing. And does anyone remember Shattered Comet? Like, just not damaging party members and doing way more damage. And it also didn't have a universal cooldown back then, so, like, you used to be able to spam it in Clan Wars with partied members because it just wouldn't hit them, and it was a massive AoE that did, like, a bar to anyone caught in it. And since it didn't have that global cooldown I just talked about, if you were in Clan Wars with 5 Q Keto players, you could all just spam Shattered Comet and one-shot an entire clan of people. It was just really stupid. This should not have existed in any version of reality. I don't know what dev thought. Let's add a huge AoE move that just doesn't damage party members. That couldn't be problematic. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Shoutouts to Jake, Cyberboy21, and Drizzy Drake Fan. Your first song for this month is basically done. I'm just waiting on audio remixing, and you guys will be getting 2 this month, so don't worry. I know I forgot to release one last month, but I'm on vacation. Once the audio remixing is done, I'll just upload it, and, you know. Love you all, have a great day, and goodbye.